banjo and they're generally not played the same way, it's gonna be a bit
wonderful.
So the right body around the 4-string banjo, but you're welcome.
I'm gonna mute everybody so that we don't hear any background stuff. And I'd like to welcome you all to the first ever Ground Fiction reading event. This is a celebration of a very exciting period where we've put together our, okay, you gotta go over there. I'm sorry, it's not okay. Okay, so it's great to have a 7-year-old that you're in charge of when a big reading event like this is coming on. And we're very excited to have this journal put together. We're excited to come together to celebrate this and have some readings from some of our great authors who are a part of it. You can find out more information about the journal at groundfiction.com. We will put links in the chat room, in the chat for how to follow us on social media, how to get your copy on Amazon, and how to get a free copy of the ebook. Reviews on Amazon, we love. If you have a loved one who has a story in this journal, feel free to post a review on Amazon. And if you are having trouble writing one, we will write it for you. So just ask away. We'll be happy to write reviews for you to post under any and all names. Thank you, Jen, for the link. So, I'm adding a few co-hosts so that they can help admit people from the waiting room. Thank you. So our first reader tonight originally hails from Pittsburgh. She's been a writer for more than 20 years. She focuses on thrillers and ghost stories for adults, as well as middle grade fantasy. Her first novel, The Widow of Hartford, was written in my classes at Harvard and with the help of some of our members here in the workshop. I gotta tell you guys, when this book comes out, you're gonna love it. If you know Jen, ask her if you can read a piece or a part of The Widow of Hartford. This book cooks. And Jen is gonna read for us tonight from a ghost story that I will let her tell you a little bit about. Jenn Fickley-Baker, everybody.
Thank you. That was a nice introduction, Seth. So my story is The Haunting at Darlington Boardwalk, and it is set in a Depression era seaside town. It's a boardwalk in New Jersey, a fictional boardwalk in New Jersey. And my main character is an entrepreneur named Roscoe Sterling who buys a boardwalk, hoping to make a fortune in the middle of the Depression. Roscoe saw her for the first time that night, or at least swears he did. He jolted awake in the dark, alarmed at first why his own body had made such a rapid jerk. Then his hands flew up to his ears as he...
Hey, Jen, can you tell us what page you're on?
Oh, yeah, 51.
So people can follow along. And we're going to read slowly tonight. Whenever everyone's going to relax and read nice and slowly. Thank you.
Okay. Roscoe saw her for the first time that night, or at least swears he did. He jolted awake in the dark, alarmed at first why his own body made such a rapid jerk. Then his hands flew up to his ears as the piped notes of a midnight waltzer's ball blasted outside. Yellow lights, too, the lights from the carousel, flooded in through his shadeless window. He scrambled out of bed. Had someone turned the damn thing on? He stepped to the window and peered down. The volume rattled the glass pane. Mud wasn't kidding about hearing this thing for miles. Below, Roscoe could see the carousel begin to turn in its clockwise motion. The calliope blared away, its notes hollow and relentlessly loud. "God damn it," he said. But just as he stepped away from the window, he saw the figure of the lone woman standing on the inside of the construction tarp. "Hey," Roscoe banged his fist on the window pane, then unlatched it and lifted it. The blare of the midnight waltzer's ball filled his apartment. "Hey, doll, you can't be in there. What'd you turn it on for?" But as soon as the words came out of his mouth, he noticed something strange about her as the speckled yellow light of the carousel flashed over her. Light, then dark, then light again. Her wavy hair stopped just above her shoulders, and the neck of her dress was tied in a bow at her collarbone. But when the light flashed on her, she became a blur, like he was holding up a glass of ice water, trying to see her through the distortions of the glass. The woman took no notice of his words, so he tried again as the song finally came to a pause. Hey, lady, scram, I said you can't be in there. The figure just stood there, staring at the spinning carousel. A sudden pounding on his apartment door made him jump. Wonderful tenants. Roscoe slammed the window shut just as the midnight waltzer's ball started up again a second time. He shoved his feet into his shoes as he pulled the door open. Before him stood Madame Julia, her gray hair pinned up in curlers. She held her threadbare nightdress closed with one white-knuckled fist. Mr. Sterling, it is 3 a.m. She enunciated every word. There's an intruder, he mumbled as he brushed past her. He dashed down the double stairs out onto the boardwalk, nearly slipping on the slick wood, and ducked under the construction tarp. Before him, the carousel spun empty. He headed for the spot he'd seen her. Miss! But there was no sign of her, or anyone. Roscoe hopped onto the carousel, squeezed between the horses, folded back the mirror wall, and jumped inside. He yanked all the levers down, shutting off the power. The carousel's lights went dark, and the turntable eased to a slow stop, the platform empty except for the shadow of horses swirling around him. Hello? Whoever she was gone. That's it for me.
Wow, thank you very much, Jen. Excellent. I promise you guys, you should read this story. You're going to love it. That was just a little bit of it. So definitely check it out. I should introduce myself. I'm Seth Harwood. I'm the editor of this journal. I'm very proud of all the work that these writers have put in. I'll put another link to the ebook in the show notes, in the notes for those who just showed up. I am excited to present our next author. Alyce Werdel lives with her husband in San Francisco and currently Tahoe, and they raised 3 children in San Francisco. In a former life, she was a partner at the international law firm of Baker and McKenzie, and she was a frequent speaker and author on global equity compensation. She's a graduate of the University of Notre Dame Law School, Stanford University, and she played on 2 NCAA championship tennis teams. And we've not gotten to hear that story, and I look forward to hearing it. Alyce started in one of my classes at Stanford about 1.5 or 2 years ago, and she has been flying on this novel, Vengeance, just working on it tirelessly and beautifully for close to 1.5 now, maybe 2 years. We're really lucky to have her here with us tonight, and as a part of our group, she will be reading from an excerpt from the novel, and I'm happy to have her here with us. Alyce, welcome.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to read an excerpt from my excerpt, so I do not have a page where you can follow along because I'm limited to 7 minutes, which means I needed to cut it down. I needed to cut bits out in the middle. So this is a scene that takes place about halfway through the book. A man named Jeff has been kidnapped by a group and is forced to carry out a task for them, which I'll get into in this scene. So Jeff is a good guy, and Uwe the German is a bad guy. Jeff follows the German uphill through the cool, dense forest. Pine needles crunch under his boots. He glances up at the trees silhouetted in murky gray against the phosphorus green night vision lenses. At the top, where the woodland abruptly ends, the German veers left and leads them north along the crest of the mountain. Jeff slips his thumbs under the padded straps on his backpack and lifts them a few inches off his aching shoulders. They've been hiking through these rugged mountains in southwestern Albania most of the night. According to Uwe, former East German Stasi, now hacker extraordinaire, they have less than an hour remaining. Jeff has to admit, Uwe seems to know what he's doing. And as a former CIA special ops and current head of the agency's cyber warfare division, Jeff recognizes competence when he sees it. But that's not his primary focus. He raises his goggles and presses his fingers against his eyelids. He can't get that photo of his kids out of his mind's eye. Clara and Evan sitting cross-legged on a dirty wooden floor, hands bound behind them, white rags stuffed in their mouths and held in place with duct tape. Clara's chin thrust upwards, her eyes glowering into the camera. And Evan, his eyes are as big as saucers, staring above the lens at the person holding it. It was all the motivation Jeff needed. He'd comply with Uwe's demands and install the CIA malware in the compressor station's industrial control system, but he'll figure out what this group is planning and a way to screw it up. Sounds of night surround them, chirping, hooting, howling. But when Jeff hears light footfalls scamper through the scrub brush on the right, he freezes. He turns, lowers his goggles, and scans the hillside, searching for a four-legged predator or a pack of them. All he sees are low-lying bushes on a steep slope lined with vertical crevices. The mountainside descends 100 yards to a valley divided into neat strips of crops. A third of the way across, the quiet farmland is interrupted by 50 well-lit acres of fenced cement buildings and steel pipes, burning an eerie green through his goggles. Their target, a compressor station on the Trans-Adriatic pipeline that transports natural gas originating in Azerbaijan and shoots it downstream through Albania, under the sea and into Italy, and from there further into Western Europe. Over here, Uwe gestures toward a large, smooth boulder firmly embedded in the earth under a clump of fir trees. It faces east, down the mountainside and over the valley below. This is a good vantage point to review our plan of attack. You mean explain. I've yet to hear word one, and it's your plan of attack. It better be good, fucking good. I'm not spending the rest of my days in an Albanian jail because of your sloppiness. Jeff swings his pack off and rolls his shoulders. Uwe takes a seat on the rock and lets his pack slide off behind him. This will be the best planned mission you've ever been a part of. He cracks his neck from side to side. Doubtful. Jeff sits on Uwe's right and looks out to the compressor station. The goggles illuminate 200 yards into the distance. Beyond that, the night sky and everything under it is swallowed in complete darkness. You see the mouth of that crevice? Uwe points to his left. That's our path down. Jeff's eyes follow. The one that looks like a luge track without any turns? Correct. It is deep and narrow. Jeff adjusts his lenses and zooms in on the crevice. He traces it down the mountainside into the thicket, where he makes out roof shingles between branches. He loses sight of the crevice amongst the trees, but picks it up again below the thicket, where it continues down the hillside another 15 yards. It ends at a dirt road running along the base of the mountain. Uwe continues, we cross that road. From there we have no cover, so we sprint through the 2 grain fields. When we reach the fruit orchard next to the station, we stop and regroup. Jeff rests his elbows on his knees and holds his head in his hands. His gaze slides down the mountainside and lands on the station. They'll have cameras, he says. Uwe nods. They're mounted on the light poles outside the fence. I assume you have a plan to deal with that, Jeff says. Naturally. Jeff commits the layout to memory. 5 large windowless cement buildings housing the compressors run north-south through the midline of the station. Behind them, on the eastern side, the station yard holds pipes transporting natural gas through filters, coolers, and other heavy machinery on its way into and out of the compressors. A mobile home, storage shed, and entrance gate border the west side of the facility. Where's the industrial control center, Jeff asks. In the mobile home. The engineer on duty is also there. We enter through the back door after he leaves for his rounds. When's that? Every 2 hours on the half hour, he inspects the facility for any malfunction the sensors don't pick up. We'll hit the 2:30 a.m. patrol. How long does that take? 30 minutes, Uwe responds. So we have 25 minutes to get in, find the industrial control panel, unlock it, Let the software update run and get the hell out? Uwe holds his hand out and rotates it side to side. Nah, 20 is better. Well, of course it is. Doesn't mean it's doable. I have faith in you. Uwe jumps down from the rock. Jeff follows suit and slides off the boulder while Uwe reaches into his pack and removes a black nylon balaclava. He shakes it in Jeff's face. Put yours on too. There could be cameras inside that are not connected to the exterior system. Jeff takes off his goggles and knit cap. What do you mean could be? You don't know? He retrieves his mask and tugs it over his head. Then he puts on his cap and straps the goggles over it. I couldn't find any evidence of interior cameras, but I prepare for surprises. Well, that's the difference between you and me. I don't leave room for surprises. The German swings his pack over his shoulders and buckles the straps. Then he turns around to face Jeff and jabs his finger in his chest. Keep your shit together, as you Americans like to say. Remember the consequences of failure. Jeff swipes Uwe's hand away. He who eats fire shits sparks, as you Germans like to say. This is your plan. There are risks beyond my control. Uwe mutters something unintelligible under his breath and turns toward the crevice. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to unmute everyone so that you can applaud for the first two readers.
Love this. I love
Very nice. Great.
Yay.
Both of them. Great. They're wonderful.
Excellent.
I love this.
Very glad to hear from the crowd. We will soon be asking, or anytime you want, if you're interested in joining the newsletter email list for Ground, which we will not fill up your inbox with, but we will only give you content every so often, lovingly. Feel free to put your name and email address into the chat. We're just starting to build our newsletter list, and we're happy to have you on there. So, thank you, Jen. Thank you, Alyce. We're going to move forward into our program to our next reader, who is Liz Coleman. Elizabeth Coleman came into my Stanford writing class this was a while ago. This might have been like more than 10 years ago, 2008, perhaps. Connie is actually telling me exactly when it was. She'll put it into the chat. 2011, it was before 2011 for sure, I think. And in any case, I've been able to see Liz's writing progress and grow for quite some time now. I'm really happy to say that she has finished a novel, which tonight's selection will come from. The book is called City of Sevens, and it is currently on submission to agents and editors. Her work has been featured in Art Animal Magazine and Swoop, among others. And you can find her on Twitter at the Liz Coleman. Thank you very much, Liz. We're happy to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So my novel, City of Sevens, is an urban fantasy, and it is about a young woman who discovers that she's a witch, and she has a blood oath that ties her to a vampire overlord. And he wants her to get a job spying at a supernatural startup in San Francisco. So she has to go for an interview, and the excerpt is the interview, her getting a job there. And so this is an excerpt of the excerpt, like Alyce says. So I'll start. The space was huge, even bigger than it had looked from the outside. There was definitely some spatial trickery going on to make the inside larger than the outside. About 60 or so employees, mostly magical creatures interspersed with a few Sixer humans, bustled around the floor, holding team meetings and going over specs. A troop of tiny green fairies trailing green pixie dust flew over Nadia's head, startling her. A garden gnome in a pointy red hat argued with a banshee with a long white hair that floated up around her face like she was underwater, the banshee's voice rising to shrieking levels as they debated something about the wish seed app. Some numinals still had their glamours on, but most of them were freely exposed, revealing their true form. Nadia was surrounded by fairies with bright translucent wings, squat goblins with large pointy ears, shifters that were half changed into animals, sprites and elementals with bodies that dissolved into the air as they moved, and centaurs with mohawks and dreadlocks wearing Hawaiian shirts. Nadia fought the urge to stare and tried to keep her face impassive, like it was every day she saw this many supernatural creatures in an office environment, battling copy machines, playing foosball, and typing away at laptops. Anya led Nadia around the perimeter of the first floor, which consisted of a minimalistic open co-working space. Glass-encased conference rooms and offices lined the sides adjacent to the main area. In the back, a giant steel staircase wound up from the first floor to the second floor balcony that lined the perimeter of the space. One corner of the main floor had a cafe and lounge area next to a huge indoor oak tree that was crawling with goblin-like creatures serving up snacks and drinks. Employees sat at tables and on beanbag chairs eating lunch, while others played foosball and ping pong in a gaming area lined with retro arcade machines. On the wall, a gigantic flat-screen TV alternated news broadcasts with calming images of nature and sacred geometry. Over the sound system, the music changed. Nadia recognized the song by Nora En Pure. Several employees started dancing to the DJ's music as they worked at stand-up desks. Others bobbed their heads as they sat in front of their laptops. A giant mural covered an entire wall on the ground floor, and Nadia stopped for a second to admire it. It was like a Hermanus Bausch street art mashup, complete with graffiti goddesses, immortal deities, and the battle between good and evil playing out in a vibrant tapestry of reds, purples, golds, and blues. Anya noticed Nadia's head swiveling about as she tried to look at everything. She chuckled. Sixers always lose their minds the first time they come here. How big is this place? It doesn't look like this could all fit in here from the outside. Bigger than you would think. There's several floors underneath this one as well, where the innovation labs and vaults are located. Nadia hurried to catch up with Anya's long strides. Do non-Sixers ever come inside? I think they might notice this isn't exactly your normal work environment. Oh, sure, but we warn all employees over the God speakers so they can put their glamours on before a muggle enters. You actually call them muggles? Nadia asked. She laughed, nodding. We screen movies every Thursday night. In the lounge, by the way. Last week was The Last Unicorn, not a dry eye in the room. They climbed the giant metal staircase to the second floor, and Anya led Nadia to one of the glass-walled conference rooms that lined the perimeter. A kind-looking woman in her 50s with a mane of dark, unruly curls loosely pinned on top of her head rose to her feet when they entered, a set of tiny translucent wings vibrating behind her. She was wearing a pink pantsuit and a floral neck scarf, which made her look vaguely like a real estate agent. She floated over and shook Nadia's hand warmly, giving off a distinct house mom vibe. You must be Nadia. Please, take a seat, she said with a benevolent fairy godmother smile, gesturing at one of the chairs around the conference room table. I'm Vega, the HR manager. Tattoos peeked out from under her jacket sleeves as the woman sat down and clasped her hands. Nadia took a seat, poised on the edge of her chair with perfect posture, and folded her hands in her lap. Well, to start off, said Vega, I'd like to congratulate you on passing Miss Aptitude test. We know it wasn't easy, but as I'm sure you're aware, we only hire humans for full-time positions if they have Sixer abilities and we think they would be a good fit for the unique personality of the company. Vega shifted around some papers in front of her. She held up a pair of gold-rimmed spectacles to her face as she read from one of the sheets. As I told you on the phone, your background is exactly what we're looking for at the moment. Imogen McKenna, the director of Mist Foundation, is returning to Dublin at the end of summer. We're planning on finding a long-term replacement, but for now, we need someone to oversee the daily functions of the collection. As I noted in my resume, I have extensive cataloging experience with various museums and auction houses, including Smithsonian and Christie's. Vega nodded approvingly. Your most recent position after you graduated wasn't in the arts, though. Why the shift? Nadia took a deep breath. My experience in the arts was all unpaid internships. There aren't a lot of paid positions, and most of the time you have to continue as an intern until a position opens. I would have loved to get a job working for a museum or gallery, but with student loans and bills to pay, I didn't have that option. I always intended to pivot back. Nadia didn't mention that she could have continued as an intern, taking the money her father had offered her when she graduated, but she had wanted to prove that she didn't need him and could make it without his help or the strings that came with it. Understandable. I took many strange jobs over the years until I found a career at Miss. Are you familiar with Miss onboarding structure? New employees come on as unassigned. After working on several projects and with different departments, we develop a position and title that is customized to their interests and skills. It looks like you have some experience interacting with artists. Vega picked up her glasses again and squinted at the resume. Yes, that's correct. I interned one semester during school for a gallery in Virginia Beach. The owner had a very collaborative approach to running the gallery. I helped a lot with artist management and cultivating relationships with not only the clients, but with the artists as well. Vega's tiny wings fluttered behind her. Excellent. Our VP of Talent Management is looking for an assistant on some upcoming projects, and that could be a good fit for you as well as with the foundation. Nadia leaned forward slightly, trying to look eager. I'm definitely interested in that area. Vega nodded. Hobbies include horseback riding, sailing, field hockey, reading, chess, and volunteering. Sounds like you're pretty active. Miss actually has a few sports teams that play other startups and local leagues. If you're picked for the position, you should look into those. That would be great. I played on several intramural teams in college. Wonderful. Vega shuffled her papers together, collecting them into a folder. Well, that's it for me. I think you're very qualified and would be a good fit here. Our CEO, Rune Christensen, interviews all candidates, though, before we extend any formal offers. Normally, we'd have to come back for a second interview with him, but since Imogen is leaving, I want to expedite the process. I'll go see if he's available right now. Vega flitted out, leaving Nadia in the conference room. Alone, Nadia started to grow nervous. The Miss Psionic smartwatch on her wrist beeped at her change in mood. She smoothed down her blouse and slacks and ran a hand over the top of her dark hair, pulled back into a neat bun. Nadia squared her shoulders and took deep breaths, willing her racing heart to calm. In her mind, she practiced her interview smile and handshake, imagining how the encounter would go. After a few minutes, the door opened. Nadia rose to her feet. Her mother had always said you only get one chance to make a good impression, and Nadia wanted to win over the CEO. This job was going to be hers. A tall man with broad shoulders walked in. He wore jeans and a gray Henley shirt and held a two-pronged manila folder. He looked up from the papers he was reading. Nadia flushed. He was the most beautiful man that she had ever seen. That's it for me.
Oh, very exciting. Unmuting for applause.
Yay!
Oh my gosh.
Hey,
Thank you, Liz, and everyone, audience. I'll take this opportunity to thank you for coming. We're very glad that you're here. We wouldn't be having half the fun if it weren't for you. And I'll also take this moment to introduce a couple of other writers from our pages who will not be reading tonight, but who will give you a very small royal/golf wave to introduce themselves. This is Andrew Hinshaw, live from the Midwest. He's the author of one of the pieces towards the end of the journal. And Kate M. Colby is here from the Midwest as well. And she is the author of The Harrow, a piece that my father read last week and loved. So we're doing really well there with my father's reading. Thank you everyone for coming. I am excited to introduce our next reader. Our next reader is Jeannie Hua, coming from Reno, Nevada. We're very happy to have her here with us. She has spent a long time in Las Vegas and will not tell you anything about it. She has been a criminal defense attorney there for 20 plus years and a genius writer in her own mind since birth. While awaiting her genius to be discovered, she's attending the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, mostly working on painting, but also working on fiction. She's been in the workshop for several years now, and we're very happy to have her with us. Jeannie Hua, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My story is on page 191, and it's entitled Dad. Dad holds his arm up for me to put his jacket on. I can see his scalp through his gray hair as his thin, pale arms slide easily through the sleeves. He smells like old sweat. His sunken eyes look straight ahead at framed baby pictures on the piano as I zip his jacket up. More photographs in mismatched frames over the wall behind the piano. A feng shui money tree sits to the right of the piano, both resting upon bright green carpet. He needs his shoes, Anton says in a subdued voice. He's standing by the door, wanting to be out of the way. He's trying to look casual with his hands in his pockets, rumpling the bottom of his suit jacket and leaning against the wall. Yet he's anything but. His very presence denotes our somber purpose. Anton almost never takes off from work, but today he has, because he recognizes that my dad is dying. A voice from the adjacent master bedroom floats out. 他的鞋子在前门. Anton tilts his head and looks at me. From habit, I automatically interpret without prompting. Mom says his shoes are by the front door. My heels clack on the cream tiles with orange, yellow, and brown flowers lining the hallway. Adjusting my eyes from the sun-filled family room to the darkness, I see a faded pair of canvas shoes. There's a hole in the toe of the left shoe. I bend down and the back of my shirt untucks. I tuck my shirt back in with one hand as I carry his shoes with the other. Clacking back to Dad on the black leather couch, I crouch down before him. This must be how shoe salespeople feel, subservient all the time. I pick up his left foot, straining my suit jacket. 哎呀，女儿痛啊, my dad croaks. I drop his foot. 哎呀! What's wrong? Anton asks, straining his neck to see. He told me I hurt him, I say. Sorry, Dad. I steady myself with one hand on the carpet and look up at Anton, who's still standing by the family room door. Mom told me his cancer has probably spread to his bones. Anton winces. Honey, you need to be careful. I think that really hurts. I snap. Tell me something I don't know. I regret my words instantly. I need him here. I cradle my dad's left foot, place his toes into the opening of the shoe, then his heel. I do the same with his right foot. I need to buy him another pair of shoes. This pair has a hole and it's all stained. I didn't see any other shoes by the door. My heart aches, picturing the rows of designer shoes in my closet. I'm 4 years old. I pull my hand from Dad's and run to the monkey exhibit. I sit on the ledge by the fence and look down into the pit at the monkeys. Dangling my legs, a flip-flop dislodges and falls onto the netting covering the top of the pit. Monkeys hoot and holler at the intrusion. Dad calls me a bad little monkey and carries me for the rest of our visit. Okay, honey, Anton replies. As I stand up, Anton strolls from the family room door to the couch. We each take an arm to help Dad up. Anton pushes the coffee table from the couch with his foot. We all turn in a line towards the hallway like community theater rockettes. One step, then two. I watch my dad's face, his features still in silent concentration. It's 22 steps to the family room door leading to the hallway. We walk the pace of a New Orleans funeral march. I'm in 5th grade. Dad just bought me a blue and white bike. Mom thought he spent too much money. We're in front of our old house on the sidewalk. I'm afraid and excited. Cars whiz by as Daddy pushes me off, telling me I can do it. I veer to the left and crash. We laugh. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. That was wonderful. This is the part where we're going to take a 2-minute opportunity to move away from your computer, refill your drink, refill your cheese tray and your fruit plate, and we will reconvene in a couple of minutes with our next reader. If you'd like to stay here and ask some questions in the Q&A, some of us will be here for you as well. You could consider this the intermission. We have 3 more readers. And thank you all for joining. Jeannie, that was great.
Thanks. I knew you wanted us to read slower, so I pretended to have like a learning disability, and that really worked for me.
That's great. My experience is if you feel like you're reading too slow, that's usually right about the right speed. But everyone is doing great tonight. Liz, that was awesome. Thank you. Connie, we're going to have to get you out here to read one of these times.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I actually know how to do dramatic reading. I got forced to study it as a freshman in college. So yeah.
I believe it.
Well, that means I'd have to write, doesn't it?
Well, you could just read to us from the Scrivana.
Well, there's a lot of Scrivana out there. There really is.
I think we have both coasts covered here. We've got Julie in Rhode Island. I'm in Massachusetts.
And the Heartland.
Yeah, we've got the Heartland, the flyover states, Florida, California, Nevada, Kansas. We'll have 3 more readers, and then we'll see if we have time for any Q&A.
We also have Mexico.
We have Mexico?
My dad is here. He's in Mexico.
Wow.
Hi, Dad. If you're listening.
Hi. We also have Texas.
Coleman, hello.
Hello.
Welcome. We're happy to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I was a lit major in college like Elizabeth.
Wonderful. Where was that?
UCLA.
Yes.
Good
My
school.
father was here a minute ago, but he seems to have disappeared. Oh, no, he's here. My father's here.
Where?
You guys in a breakout room. So far, we have 4 names for our newsletter, including Lucas, who didn't give us her email address. So I think we need a few more folks for the newsletter. But you can also sign up for it at groundfiction.com. And somehow all the newsletter subscriptions there go to a GoDaddy account that we're unable to access. We're working on it.
Ding, ding.
MailChimp, we're working on it. All the things. So I'll mention again that we're doing another reading on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll have a few other folks from the journal reading there. And I'll mention also the artwork on the cover of this is by my friend Amy Toludo. Her website is inside the book. And I think we're all really happy with how this turned out. She does beautiful oil paintings of the land and the ground. And it feels like it fit right in with our themes and considerations.
So this is what Liz's hair looks like when she curls it.
I know. I tried today, so
Yeah,
despite my normal COVID look.
This is also what Liz's hair looks like when it's not the color I've known it for many years to be.
I know. I'm not blonde anymore, so.
Are you naturally a brunette? You know that brunettes have more fun.
I think I'm more or less this. I don't know. I've like dyed my hair since I was like 13, so I don't really know.
Well, I'm liking it. How's that?
Thanks. So I'm trying for something new, and also like COVID times, I was like, I can't get my hair done anymore.
Well, this time around, I learned how to actually color my roots. I'm now a root color master.
Oh, there you go.
Because I'm super gray at this point.
Oh,
Connie, you realize that everyone can hear this conversation, right?
I know, I don't much care.
Writers have nothing to hide. We put it all on paper. It's
We
fine.
put it all on Zoom and paper.
Forgive me, but I've got to step away. I've got a 5 o'clock. Congratulations. Fantastic work.
Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
So we'll start up again in a minute or so. Our readers that we still will hear from are Julie, Lynn, and Bennett. Julie, how's your family at this point? Are we still waiting for anyone?
Yeah, but she wasn't quite sure when she was going to log in, so we'll see. But we have one here from Texas. Alyce is here.
Wonderful.
She's there as Anne, but she's really Alyce. Hi, Alyce.
Alyce from Texas.
Yep,
Wonderful.
I'm
Can
on
we
the
hear
road,
some
so
other?
I'm only listening in.
Oh, can we hear from some other guests where they are geographically? Just shout them out.
Texas represent.
San Francisco, Texas.
Virginia, outside of DC.
Nice.
Hey, Gretchen.
Hi.
Oh, we can do our video. We look okay. All right. We're in Boulder Creek.
Wonderful.
Hey guys.
Looks great. Yeah, super. So our next author is Lynn Bemiller. She is a retired physician and Navy veteran. She holds a certificate in novel writing from Stanford. This is her second published story. She has 2 grown sons and lives in Southern California, right near the beach with her husband. You can see the beach behind her right now, virtual or otherwise. And we're very happy to have Lynn in our workshops. And I've had the pleasure of working with her for more than the last year on this novel. She'll be reading to us tonight from The Cold Warrior's Guide to Medicine.
Thank you for the introduction, Seth. I'm on page 87, if anyone wants to follow along. The setting is Norfolk, Virginia, on a very hot August night at about 3 a.m. The time frame is in the 1980s. And our 2 characters here are Lieutenant Deborah Slater, who's a brand new physician, and Matthew Jenkins, who is a seasoned Navy corpsman. They've just been out on an ambulance run on Deborah's first night on call. I jumped rusty along its edges.
Lynn, I muted you. Can you start over? Just for a sec.
Okay.
Thanks.
Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. I jumped down from the ambulance and looked around. The base police's van, haze gray and a little rusty around the edges, was parked at the back of the lot. On my left, a World War II era guard shack stood empty, and the double gate separating the shack from a neglected stretch of road on the far side of the fence didn't appear to have been opened in recent memory. Pines choked with Virginia creeper hemmed the other 3 sides of the lot. The white lines had chipped with weather and time, and dandelions poked through the cracks in the asphalt. In the middle of the lot, 2 policemen stood with their backs to us, smoking and looking at something on the ground. I grabbed the jump box and jogged over to where they stood. The younger of the 2 guards acknowledged us with a nod. "Just like we found him, Doc." He took a big draw on his cigarette, held it a moment, and exhaled through his nose. I knelt on the ground next to the corpse. He was past middle age, smallish, but with the look of someone used to physical labor. He lay on his back with his knees drawn up in a stiff fetal position. His dull, half-open eyes had receded in their sockets, and in his gaping mouth, a set of top dentures still stuck to his palate. He was dressed in snagged double knit brown slacks and a faded short-sleeved plaid shirt. A wedding band seemed trapped on a thin finger by knobby knuckles. His feet were bare, swollen and discolored in a way that hinted at chronic heart disease. I sat back on my heels for a moment, deciding what to do with him. Sensing that the three men watching expected something of me, I pulled a stethoscope from my coat pocket and, feeling vaguely foolish, bent my cheek to the man's face, feeling for breathing. I put the stethoscope on his chest and listened in vain for heart sounds. In spite of the heat, his pale skin felt unpleasantly clammy and cool. I shoved the stethoscope back into my pocket and stood up. Odd position for him to be in, curled up like this, don't you think? I walked all the way around him once and then bent down and pressed lightly against his bent knees. They didn't budge. I turned my head sideways and looked again. Maybe he was lying on his side when he died. Jenkins shook his head and shrugged. Couldn't tell you. I stood up. Well, let's get the poor guy up off the ground at least. I watched as Jenkins opened the back of the ambulance. He reappeared a minute later, pushing a gurney that he rolled up next to the body. He motioned to the nearest cop, who ground out a cigarette with his shoe and ambled over. The two of them hoisted the corpse onto the gurney and laid him on his side, facing away from them. I pulled up his shirt and inspected his back. No blood, no sign of trauma, just the livid marks that blood makes when it's settled after death. His unwashed trousers were faintly damp and smelled of urine. Something about that smell made him seem sadly human. I looked down at him for a minute more, feeling helpless and sorry as Jenkins pulled a sheet over him. I turned and paced slowly towards the honeysuckle-wrapped fence. Through the vines, the main runway of the Breezy Point Air Station stretched away from me at a diagonal. I could hear a prop plane idling in the distance. Nearby among the pines, a nightjar called, "Chuck Will's widow." Another one, farther away, replied, "Chuck Will's widow." My Southern grandmother used to say that nightjars call like that when they sense a soul departing. The superstition made me shiver in spite of the heat. I fanned it away with the open edges of my lab coat. After a moment, I straightened my scrub top, retied the baggy pants, and walked back to the others. That's it.
Yay!
Thank you, Lynn. That was great. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work soon. Thank you guys all for showing up. It's so COVID for us to all be gathered here on Zoom, but the reality is we're so spread out geographically that this would be the best way to do it in any time. So I'm really glad that you guys are all here, making this fun and helping to celebrate our release. Our next reader is Julie Parmentier. She's a retired geologist, environmental scientist who has gone back to writing after years of consulting and teaching. She has published occasionally in the past in the Providence Journal and the Foster Home Journal. She lives with her spouse in Western Rhode Island, sharing the woods with the tree frogs, barred owls, foxes, and far too many deer. Tonight, she's bringing us an excerpt from her novel that takes place in the same setting, and I know you're going to enjoy it as much as I do every time I get to read some of it. Julie, thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Okay, I'm starting a scene in the...
Uh-oh. Julie, I muted you. Everyone got muted. Sorry.
That's right. I unmuted me. I'm good. All right. Madeline, who's the protagonist in this novel, is driving home on the Mass Pike from her daughter's house in Vermont, and she falls asleep. And she's awakened before she crashes the car by the horn from a truck behind her. She gets off at a rest stop and she notices that the truck is following her. So she's a little nervous that there might be a confrontation, but the driver intercepts her and expresses only concern. Madeline buys him a cup of coffee, and that's where I'm starting. So, want to eat together? He said, pointing towards an empty table. I get lonely for conversation when I'm driving. Madeline's eyes crinkled. That would be a great pickup line, except she probably reminded him of his mother. You remind me of my mother, he said. My name's Jimmy. I'm Madeline, and yes, I'd be happy for the company. Why are you driving by yourself so late? Jimmy asked after they'd settled at the table and unpackaged their food. He took off his cap and set it on the edge of the table, then ran his fingers through salt and pepper curls that were several weeks past the need for a haircut. Madeline read the logo on his cap, Summer Transport, letters in green with a bright yellow sun. She set her container of fries between the two of them, indicating he should help himself, then shrugged off her coat, letting it drape over the back of the plastic chair. Last-minute change of plan, said Madeline. I was heading to New York to see my friend Gloria. She picked up her coffee cup and took off the lid to let it cool. I had been visiting my daughter in Vermont, and it was a 3-hour drive or so from her house to Cooperstown. That's where my friend lives. Anyway, Gloria called me when I was about an hour out and told me she'd come down with a stomach virus. I'd better not come. She was sure it was norovirus, as there was a lot of it in the school where she volunteers. Jimmy nodded, his mouth full of meatball sandwich. I had a choice of going back to my daughter's or driving home. I thought it would be easier to go home. It's all highway driving. I would have to drive back roads to my daughter's house, not to mention that she and her husband have had to put up with me for the last 5 days, and they both work. Home's a little bit farther, but I thought I could do it. She stopped to take a sip of coffee. Only it's been a long time since I've driven so far by myself. Jimmy wiped his mouth, carefully removing tomato sauce from his beard. I'm surprised your daughter didn't give you more grief. I wouldn't have let my mother drive so far alone. He squeezed a package of ketchup onto the edge of the sandwich wrapper and took a French fry. Oh, she gave me grief, made me share my location. Madeline made air quotes with her fingers. I suppose you know all about it, but she had to walk me through setting it up on my phone. Now she's tracking my every move. Madeline laughed and started eating her Big Mac, savoring the greasy, salty, sweet flavor. Tell me about your mother. Not much to say. She passed away about 2 years ago. Cancer. I miss her, though. Jimmy took another French fry and dipped it in the ketchup, stuffing the whole fry into his mouth. So she didn't do much driving? Oh, no. She drove a lot, but she and my dad drove together. They got an RV after they retired and took off to see the country. They had those senior passes for the national parks, Yellowstone, Zion. I think they were trying to see them all. I don't know how many they got to, maybe 30 or something like that, before my mother got too sick to travel. But they had a good time. I owned my own rig, so I'd meet up with them sometimes when I was headed cross country, and we'd spend a couple of days together. My husband and I talked about doing that. It sounded like a lot of fun. We were going to rent an RV and see how we liked it, but we never got around to it. Your husband died? Yes, not quite a year ago. He had a heart attack. What about your father? Is he still living? She saw his face change, a creasing of the forehead, a pinched look around the eyes, signs of stress. Yes, he's still alive. He's in a memory care facility. He went downhill fast after my mother passed. Oh, I am so sorry. My husband had Alzheimer's too. Jimmy looked at her, his eyes focusing directly on hers, nodding. So you know what it's like. I'm on the road. There's no way I can take care of him as I'd like. And the place he's in, well, it's okay. It's the best he can afford. I pay some too, but it's bleak. Imagine living with a whole bunch of demented people. I stop by and see him whenever I get back home, but he doesn't recognize me anymore, Jimmy continued, sitting back and swirling the remaining ice cubes in his coffee. The staff there seem to take good care of him, but he's always trying to escape. They called me last week. He climbed out his window. His room's on the second floor. Slid down the porch roof into the bushes, so he didn't hurt himself. Luckily, all the memory care rooms look out on an enclosed courtyard, so he couldn't get lost. People who work there, they have to be saints. He's lucky, I guess. But I know he really wants to be on the road. I guess it runs in the family. Was he a truck driver too? Lineman for the electric company. Always said he had the best job in the world. He could be his own boss when he was out in his truck. Jimmy crumpled up the wrappings from his meal and took a last slurp of his coffee. He stood up, holding out his hand for Madeline's trash. She handed him the box, but held on to her coffee. I'll keep this for the road, she said. Thank you.
Yay! Yay! Very good.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julie.
Norm.
Bravo. Do we have any writers here in the house tonight in terms of our guests, other than our published writers? I know. Our last writer of the evening is certainly not our least writer, particularly if you go by how long his piece is in the journal. It is the longest by far, and it has only been at great length that we've been able to get Bennett to write long and slow, and we're very happy that he has. Our last writer is Bennett Gates, who was once an engineer, now a retired physician, struggles to reinvent himself as a writer with the patient support of his fellow students and coach. He lives in Silicon Valley with his beagle, cat, and beloved wife, Joan, who in COVID days has become a formidable writer of honey-do lists. I give you Bennett Gates.
Thank you, Seth. This is a love story. It begins, this excerpt, on page 324. I'll give you a quick intro to the story. Walter, mid-40s, and Ellie, mid-30s, are two divorced strangers who live in San Francisco's Marina District. They're regulars at Joe's bar, where they go not for alcohol, but for Joe and the comforting crowds. They arrive alone and leave alone. Badly wounded by divorce, neither wants anything to do with the opposite sex. But with Joe's encouragement, this is the third time they've sat next to each other at his bar. Joe arrives with Ellie's tea. He nods at Walter. Great to see you again. He nods at Ellie. Both of you. He leans close to them and winks. Together again. The counter trembles as he clumps away. You don't drink? She asks, pointing to his Perrier. I do, sometimes. He points to her tea. What's your story? Sometimes. It's just a control thing. Yeah, me too. Ellie leans forward to doctor her tea. Walter gasps. Her little black dress is all cleavage and not much else. She catches him staring. She turns to him, not smiling. Suddenly she stands. Walter takes her arm, his face hot. Ellie, I'm sorry, don't go. She pushes his hand away, lifts her coat off the stool, and slips it on, standing close to him as she buttons it, bottom to top, so very slowly. Her breasts disappear like a reverse striptease. She sits back on the stool. So Walter, she stares at him, her face expressionless. How long since you've had sex? Long enough, I'm not sure I'll remember what to do when, hey, they say it's just like riding a bike. Complicated, but it all comes back to you. A bike? You think? She nods. So I've been told. How long? He still feels the warmth in his face. He clears his throat. Well, he closes his eyes. About 9 years. 9 years? I've been angry, he says, and tries to smile. 9 years, plus or minus. Plus or minus what? A couple of times near the end when she wanted me to think things were okay. So she could do what? Ah, you've been there, he says. Yes. My last sex was the night before the bitch cleaned out our joint account. She touches his arm. Joint accounts should be banned, she sighs. And marriage, possibly men too. Her hand squeezes his arm. But not you. I like being here, sitting next to you. What about you, he asks. What about me what? Last time you had sex. She sips her Earl Grey, then lowers the cup. 3 years ago next month, the night before he left. Because he wanted to what? Just wanted me to use me. He hadn't loved me in a long time. I was just too stupid to notice. She shakes her head. But that's what you men do, right? Just, she squeezes his arm again. I'm sorry, not you. Most men use love to get sex until they get bored. And then they find another girl or just move out. Ellie, you don't have to. And in my case, Henry did both. She's speaking too loudly now. Left for LA with that bitch from his office, and Joe appears in front of them, a glass of champagne in each hand. He holds one out to Ellie. On the house, he says. Got to use up the open stock. Governor's going to shut us down any day now. Ellie takes the glass, her hand shaking. Walter knows Joe has been keeping an eye on her from down the bar. Joe hands him the second glass and fills one for himself. A toast, Joe says, raising his glass, to recovery from pandemics and divorces. He gestures toward Ellie. Recovery always happens. Promise? Ellie's hand has stopped shaking. Promise, Joe says. They raise their glasses. To recovery, they say, and clink. Joe pours refills, raises his glass again. And to love, he says. They don't move. That's it. Okay.
Oh, I like that. Very nice.
Thank you, Bennett. Way to wrap it up. It's hard to believe that when we started reading that piece and when you started writing it, it was all about the beginning of COVID and bars were just shutting down. And now we've fast forwarded to a whole new future that we know nothing about. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for Christina, who just bought a copy of Ground on Amazon. I have links there in the chat for where you can buy your copy of Ground. Also, the ebook link is there. And links to Ground Fiction and writewithseth.com, which is the place that you can come to find more about our workshops and writing coaching and assignments and things like that. Very happy to have all of you guys here. I speak for myself and all the writers that it means a lot to have you guys show up, to hear the readings and to connect with us around this publication. We're all really proud and excited to bring it out into the world. It's a big collective COVID baby, and we're very happy with it. So let's have a big round of applause to everyone for showing up. Did I mute everyone again? I'm muting everyone. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you guys being here. I'm sure that some of our readers would be happy to answer questions if you have questions. And if your night is calling you, we understand that as well. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you. This is great. Thank you for everybody who showed up. This was just amazing. So thank you so much.
Thanks to everybody who put this whole thing together from the start. It's been so much fun seeing it all come together. And I really am appreciative of everybody who pitched in.
We're happy with how it looks. We're happy with the fiction inside. We're really excited. And we have one more of these events coming up on Sunday. You can find more information at Ground Fiction or ask your friendly ground reader who you know. Any last words from anyone else? Alyce from Tahoe?
Last words. No, I upgraded my drink halfway through.
Nice.
Important things.
Yes, exactly. From water to something else. But thank you, everybody, for coming. It really does mean a lot. The support means a lot. So thank you.
So, Alyce, is that your husband or your boyfriend?
Oh,
sorry. Yes.
She's married?
Yes. My boy toy right here.
Oh, nice one. We're glad to meet you. Yeah, that's a real reading veteran move, is you go for like water and then you read and then you switch over. As Liz can tell you, I've been on the wrong side of that a few times where someone shows up at a reading and starts buying me the hard drinks before I go on, and then all things fall off the rails in San Francisco.
Sorry.
That might have only happened twice. Oh, thanks. My father, thanks all of us.
What does your dad look like? Where is he?
He's hiding.
Oh, come on.
He has his camera off.
Oh.
I'll show you a picture sometime. Who knows what technology he's on? Dad, are you on a computer or your phone?
He's probably muted.
Oh yeah, what happened to your camera, Mom?
I turned it off. Let me turn it back on.
You guys can meet my mom.
It's exciting.
There she
Hi,
is.
everybody.
Grandma Judy in the house.
I really enjoyed your readings. They're all so different from each other. It's really great. It's really great.
Your son is a wonderful writer and a teacher. You should be very proud of him, which I'm sure you are.
I am. But it's great to see what he's done. It's very nice.
Did you ever spank him when he was young?
I won't tell.
Thank you, Mom. Appreciate that. I'll get that check out to you tomorrow.
Oh, that's good. No, we didn't believe in that anyways. He was such a good kid.
Thanks, Jeannie. And I have that up recorded now. So the idea is that we are write or die. That's right. We write. We should add you to our newsletter. Put your email address in the thing. So yeah, we've been doing workshop once a month, twice a month for quite some time. And we're excited to get this out. The stories in it are very different genres and different topics. We thought about doing sort of a theme issue, but we decided to just lead with what everyone really felt most comfortable with. And so we're planning to go with that as we go into our next issue as well.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, I think that's something that's really great about this group is that we have such diverse genres that we write in, but yet we all support each other. And, you know, I think that's just something that's just really special. So something I've always appreciated about Seth's group.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to the brass tacks and foundations of writing, right? And that's what we've been working on, and that's how we ground our fiction. Thank you guys for letting me choose the title of the journal and for your great submissions and all the work that you've put in. It's been a lot of fun to be on this ride with you, and I'm looking forward to continuing. Our next plan will be to release this evening's thing as a recording for those folks who couldn't make it, and we'll break up the readings into shorter chunks. So we'll have like a Liz piece and a Jeannie piece and a Jenn piece and all of those. So thank you everyone for showing up. Oh, guess who's showing up right now? My wife is in the waiting room. So now she's here and you guys can embarrass me in front of her too.
Yeah, my sister-in-law just bought a copy.
Yes.
Reviews.
Oh yeah, we need reviews, guys. Apparently if we get reviews, it turns on the Amazon algorithms and we sell more copies. But we're very happy with the sales that we've had so far. We're very happy with the reviews that are rolling in. And it just means a lot to have this piece out here in the world. Thank you, D. Sush 1.
Seth, I think we need to say thank you to you too. I mean, without all of your coaching and support, none of this would have happened. So thanks.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Thanks all of you guys. Honestly, it's really been a pleasure. It feels really good to be on this path with you, helping you guys find your voice as writers and find an important part of your work and your life and your calling and dig into it and get better. It really means a lot. So thank you. And I'm happy to continue working with you. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think I need to head out now, but thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, Alyce.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming. You guys are all great and we appreciate your support of literature and writers.
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you. I'll see you guys on Sunday at 1.
Yes, you will.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
How many pages did you write today? Thanks again.
I love you, Bennett.
Okay, take care.